Four Knights of the Apocalypse Chapter 224 has officially released, and this was another really fun and enlightening chapter to basically humble the current main antagonist of the story in a variety of ways, and showcasing once more that the sins have not been nerfed. Because that has been a massive contention within the fanbase since this final section of the story started, or even when Four Knights came out, that the sins were somehow nerfed, which is a really weird misconception, but we'll get into that later on in this chapter, as this is once again incredibly action-packed, and Meliodas is finally taking the fight seriously. Before we jump into things, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel. It shows you want to see more. And if you want to see more of me outside this channel, go check out my second channel, GW Comics, where I talk about American comic books. I'm more so DC focused right now with a bit of Marvel, but I'm going to jump into stuff from Image Comics as well over time, so go check it out. We just hit 1,000 subscribers over there, so that is a big milestone. The first hurdle has already been cleared, so I really appreciate if you guys go and check it out whenever you get the chance. Link to that channel will be in the title card and the description below. It's a passion project, and I really appreciate if you guys helped and supported if you could. But that all aside, let's jump right into the video. Chapter 224 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Twilight for Heroes. And we get a glorious double-page spread of the sins, and in the background, images of the people that they have encountered all throughout the story of 7 Deadly Sins. It's really nice, and this is also a celebration for the 5th anniversary of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. That's right, we are 5 years into this story already, over 200 chapters, and it doesn't feel like things are going to end just yet. So, that's honestly a real nice thing, and since the sins are the main focus currently in this arc at this time, it's only natural that they are the primary focus of this color page, and it is fantastic. But, jumping into the actual chapter, we continue from when Bon literally destroyed the heads of all 4 perils. They'll probably regenerate at some point. But, after they're destroyed, Cath feels the pain from them as he stumbles for a second, with Meliodas wondering why he's mulling over in pain, with Cath saying that having his other halves beaten this many times is taking its toll, as he then tries to lunge over at Meliodas with his chaotic right arm. Now this is very interesting. I know I'm stopping right at the start of this chapter, but we have to remember, chaos with the 4 perils acts like a collective hive mind going back to Cath. And since Cath placed the power of chaos permanently within the 4 perils, when they chaosify, their connection to him is stronger. And as we saw in chapter 206, when Lancelot ended up destroying the clone Arthur that was created using the 4 perils bodies in chaos, Cath felt that attack when he returned back. He felt the damage in his main body from all that force. So it makes sense that having the 4 perils basically die multiple times, especially by powerful enemies in the chaos form when they're closer to chaos, it only makes sense for Cath to feel the pain. So that is an interesting way to have a bit of a Achilles heel in a fight against Cath. So that's very interesting. But Cath tries to fight off all of Meliodas' clones created from his Lost Vein. As the clones end up jumping into the air, Cath ends up trying to use these deadly balls of poison to lunge after them. But he makes another mistake, launching magical attacks at Meliodas and multiple clones of him. They all full counter it immediately, as Cath is hit back with double the force of all those blows. But he says, well fine, how long are you planning on meddling with my affairs? But it's then that Cath ends up getting double teamed, quintuple teamed, when all the clones end up slashing at Cath's body all over as he is stumbling forward. But it's in this instance, with Cath now on the back foot, he begins to get angry, shouting out, how long are you fossils insisting on acting like the heroes of the world? With Meliodas just saying, don't ask me. I never had the slightest intention of being the hero right now, which honestly kind of makes sense. Meliodas literally has been wanting to just have the new generation take up the reins and protecting the world, because the sins already had their moment. But he's fighting because he has to. It's then Cath imprisons all of Meliodas' clones in his Usurping Paradise. And this ends up having a chaos-like structures imprisoning and basically keeping Meliodas' clones like tied on a leash. But they're struggling to break out right now, and their lost veins for some of them are being pulled away. As Cath then giggles, saying, How he knows about the abilities of his sacred treasure Lost Vein, that yes, it allows him to clone himself, but it splits his power between all the clones pretty evenly, making them incredibly weaker than the original when they fight. While it is great in terms of numbers, and can help with a lot of full counters, it is definitely his biggest misstep because the clones are weak, meaning that if you use a strong enough move or you fight a strong enough opponent, they can be subdued. As Cath continues to gloat and cackle that his clones are literally unable to do anything, he says, "Allow me to slice up all of your clones and you," as he gets another Chaos Tendril ready to basically stab through the Meliodas holding up the castle. But it's then the Meliodas clones all erupt using his demon mark for the first time in this fight, as he shatters out of the prisons, as then the main Meliodas uses his demon mark and just plants the tower back on as it's set in stone, and he falls back down with the rest of his clones, gets up in Cath's face and grabs him by the collar of his cape, staring him down, getting serious. Now this does show that Meliodas was definitely holding back in this fight. Now that he's finally using his demon mark, he is gonna be overcoming Cath in this instance. Meliodas, grabbing Cath by the collar, says, "You're right, the 7 deadly sins are retired, but that's exactly why we'll crush you, with a power greater than in our glory days. Call it our offering to the future of Britannia." Obviously, he's referring to the Four Knights of the Apocalypse and their friends, because as any and all sequel series end up going, the next generation will be the strongest and the ones to carry the torch to the future. The 7 deadly sins had their time. Yes, they're fighting Cath right now, because right now they need to, but it's the next generation that will lead the future. And that's the future that they are in fact leaving to their kids and those around them. And it makes sense, because Meliodas, while there's a possibility of them beating Cath right now is possible, he knows that there is a strong possibility that they won't win full out, and that it's going to fall to their kids to win at the end of the day. So that's an interesting way to put it, and it makes a lot of sense. But Cath is telling him that, well, if you're going to offer your offering to the future Britannia, how about I give my own offering? As then overhead in a full page, Cath unleashes this grotesque, demonic, angelic thing from chaos, his halo of closure, as it launches a ball of energy straight at them in order to wipe out Meliodas and all of his clones at once. But on the next page, as you'd expect once more, Meliodas and all his clones just full counter the attack, destroying the thing, carving it in two. Honestly, I like this effect whenever just one page is just the attack, next page, in an instant, it's full counter. I like that juxtaposition. It is honestly really damn cool, and I love it whenever stuff like that happens in this story. Or in any series when there's one page and then the next page you flip over, and in that quick instance, things have completely changed in a massive way. Cath just can't learn. He always has to just throw a magic attack at somebody, knowing that the person he's fighting, you have to beat him with brute force, otherwise your magic's just going to be launched back at you with double the strength. It's happened to him now 4 times in this section of the story alone. But this chaos creature created by Cath is split in 2, but it then divides up into what is called Propagation of Spite. Little chaotic minion creatures falling down all over Meliodas. As Cath says, well, I can play at the Doppelganger gang too, as he's trying to overwhelm Meliodas with numbers of these chaos creatures as he tries to get some distance. But on cue, they're all immediately destroyed with Banishing Kill, as Bon appears after dealing with the 4 perils. As he appears right behind Arthur, shocking him as he backs up into him, which Meliodas is happy about. Bon looks down at Cath, saying, "Most of the citizens are out of harm's way now, and I'm letting King and the rest handle the 4 evils for me," as Bon looks down at Cath. So, yeah, but for people complaining that the sins were nerfed, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they're not. People complaining about King and Deanne not being able to do anything against the 4 perils, it makes sense. It was stated in the chapter. They're prioritizing keeping the citizens from getting crushed from the rubble and the fight. So they're not going to be able to fight with all their strength against the 4 perils, which is why Bond was the best choice, because he was the fastest and most precise out of all of them to kind of deal with them in that instance. But now the citizens are practically fully evacuated, Deanne, King, and Gother can prioritize fighting the 4 perils. It also shows just how strong they are to hold off against 4 chaosified perils with just the 3 of them. Which honestly, in and of itself, is a nice way to showcase their strength. But we're going to have to see that later on. But Cath, backed into a corner, tells them to bow before the glory of your rightful king, and in anger unleashes his king's authority point blank in front of Ban and Meliodas, his shining magical blades erupting from the ground, similar to what he did when he first appeared in the Leonis arc at the beginning of the story. As we then see the ray and force of his magic erupting and encasing the whole kingdom, as all the holy knights and humans in the area are feeling the weight of it, saying that they can't bear the strength of this magic force. Cath thinks he might have won, but Meliodas breaks through it, and in an instance, Ban stomps down on him, planting him firmly into the ground, telling Cath, how about you bow down? And this is basically the same thing that Lancelot did to Cath in the Leonis arc. Only difference is that Cath was flat on his back, with Lancelot planting him there with his foot on his chest. Ban just put him down flat on his stump, on his face, and I kind of love it. In this instance, Ban just asserted dominance over Cath, and it is hilarious. Cath telling everybody to just kneel before him as their rightful king and ruler, but Ban just knocking him down and just saying, well, how about you bow down then, with no effort whatsoever. And this is honestly one of the funniest and well-deserved humblings of an antagonist in a bit. But it's then that Cath's rage just can't be kept anymore, as the Facade continues to slip throughout this fight and now is practically gone, just damning the whole situation, saying that if he had just gained a full grasp of Arthur's power, then he'd brandish complete control over the power of chaos as he yells out in frustration. Which is honestly confirmation from Cath that he's not as strong as he should be, which makes sense for two main factors. One, Arthur, the person that has the power of chaos innately, is separated from him. He doesn't have the full power, but enough power is away from Cath to the point where the Sand can just dog walk him. And also, he gave the power of chaos to the Four Perils, and they are a part of him, his other halves, which, if you account that similar to how the Demon King made the original demon and the Ten Commandments, shows that Cath gave up a part of his power to boost up his subordinates with chaos power and to directly, well, manipulate them if the need arises, which has happened multiple times. So Cath in this fight is not using the full power of chaos, which again with the reveal of this being Cath and not the real Arthur, makes a hell of a lot of sense. But yeah, everybody's saying that the sins were nerfed. This basically confirms that if they actually tried, and all win and all together, no holding back, Cath would have had his ass wiped a long time ago. And it makes sense why he was avoiding the sins for all these years, and why he's made it so that nobody could enter Camelot. He was playing it surprisingly smart, because he knew he probably wouldn't have won in those instances, but he got overconfident and cocky now with his own power and not being challenged in a while outside of Lancelot, that he thought he could beat the sins in this instance. Truly great humbling moments. Plus, this also shows that if Meliodas didn't get interrupted in his fight against Cath in the Leonis arc, if Tristan didn't just lunge in and interrupt that fight, and if Meliodas wasn't holding back as much as he did, thinking that this was the actual Arthur, he probably would have beat Cath in that fight. He probably would have won, because based off of how he's been using Lost Vein in this fight, and up until this point, he was dominating in this fight, even though this Cath is substantially weaker if we take into account that he split off his power into the Four Perils. It's still a pretty obvious thing that Meliodas would have been able to at least been more even with Cath at that point. And if the rest of the sins got involved, as we saw, he had to flee, it makes sense that the rest of the sins, especially Ban, showed up, probably wouldn't have been a contest. But still, it is interesting to look at it that way. But as Cath is on the ground yelling in frustration over the fact that he doesn't have a full grasp of Arthur's power, this is what catches Meliodas' attention as he finally puts it together, asking if this is Cath, as Cath just lets the Facade down and says, it took you so long, you boneheaded idiot, to realize I wasn't Arthur. And as you would probably expect, Meliodas was going to basically berate and get incredibly angry at Cath, but instead, Meliodas, with a jovial look on his face, turns off his demon mark, says, "Is it really you? Great to see you, Cath." Which Cath is just completely perplexed by Meliodas' whole demeanor as the chapter ends. Now, this can mean a whole number of things. One, Meliodas is actually like this because he's excited that this isn't actually Arthur, meaning that he has free reign to kill the son of a bitch. Him and Bond can just double team and wipe him out of existence if nothing else happens. Or, based on how Bond said that everybody else was handling the Four Perils, maybe only King and the Inn are handling the Four Perils, and Gowther showed up, and in this instance, put an illusion on their Cath to kind of let the Facade go, and to kind of probe him for information. That would actually be pretty hilarious, too, if this was just an illusion made by Gowther. And then we got the information we needed, and then Meliodas and Bond continue to mollywop him until something else happens. Either way, things seem to be going too good for the Sins in this instance, so something has to happen. Either Cath finds a way to retreat with his forces, or something with Chaos happens that gives him the upper hand that even he didn't realize would happen. Because I actually saw on Twitter that apparently the title of the next chapter is It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This. So, with that as the title chapter, perhaps something alluding to a potential change in the future, potentially a new power of Chaos awakens at the end of the chapter where Cath is incredibly more powerful or something like that, or he takes the power back from the Four Perils so he can be strong enough to handle Bond and Meliodas. Who knows? All I know, when things go too well in a story like this, with the previous generation finding their current antagonist, something bad is going to happen eventually, even if it's unexpected by the antagonists themselves. So there is a lot to really consider for the future of this story. But all in all, fun chapter. I loved Meliodas going all out and just humiliating Cath with his Lost Vein and finally going Demon Mark, showing that the Sins were not nerfed in this series at all, which I'm honestly kind of glad with, unless it's from other people purposely nerfing them with their own abilities. Well, as we've seen post-time skip with Bond at the start of the time skip, but was still being an absolute monster, and the nerf on King in the Fairy Realm arc, which only lasted for that arc. Either way, I'm excited to see what happens next, and for the future of the story. Either things will change and go drastic, and then we'll switch perspectives to the Four Knights, or we'll finish with the section of the story, and then we'll focus on the Four Knights. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And what's more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell and hype up the video to boost it in the algorithm. All this helps, and shows you guys enjoy what I make here on the channel, and shows you want to see more. With all that said and done, see you guys next week, and I hope you all have an awesome day.